All right, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining our first Planly webinar for the year. So this morning, Ahmed, who is one of our top applications engineers, will be covering part one of why most BIM execution plans fail, which is a very interesting topic. So I'm going to hand it over to Ahmed in a few seconds. During the webinar, please feel free to also, if you have any questions, pop them into the chat, and Ahmed and I will definitely cover them at the end. So I'll leave it up to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Nick. Good day and welcome, everyone. Today, we will share some of the answers to why do most BEPs fail. I'm Ahmed Kassim, and I'm an applications engineer at Modern AEC and INF. Thanks, Nick. And so part one of why do most BEPs fail? Unrealistic or poorly defined goals and BIM users. So for our agenda for today, why do we need a BIM execution plan? What are the BIM users, or what are BIM users generally? What to include in a BEP? Things to avoid when creating a BIM execution plan, and then how to engage the client. So let's start with the why create a BIM execution plan in the first place. So, well, unfortunately, as many of you know, this is how projects usually work. They consist of multiple teams, usually with different views of what project success looks like. So how the customer explained it, how the BIM consultant described it, how the project was actually documented, and what was installed. And finally, what the customer actually wanted was just a tire swing. So BIM execution plans, or your BEPs, are needed to help teams find a common agreement between multiple teams, multiple firms, so that everyone can follow the same standards and processes required to get to the right outcome. Some people have unrealistic expectations of BIM as well. We want LOD 500 plus Kobe. Wanting everything for a BIM model may also not be effective. You end up with either too much BIM, you're either modeling too much, you got overlapping information, or you end up with too little, where the contract didn't define enough BIM, or nobody knew who was responsible for certain items, and we end up with missing information. And sometimes we get the owners or the clients going, what is this? I didn't pay for this. This isn't what I had expected. So have clear BIM goals, make it SMART. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound BIM goals. However, some poll results point out that only 1% of projects actually requested clear BIM goals, and this is very sad. So we need to make sure, first and foremost, that we need to define our BIM use. What is the BIM use? There are many examples of what our models are used for, ranging from design all the way to simulation. So here are 5 examples. The first example is design reviews. We're seeing a lot more of VR and AR being used, and now we are asked many times by clients to model for this. Number 2 is for quantities or cost estimation, making sure we're certain of the elements needed before we go and try and take off quantities is important, because missing quantities will be a huge problem. One of the most common uses of BIM is coordination. It's very important to do coordination for constructability issues, for clash detection in the model before they get on site. And then phase planning. Understanding sequencing and 4D simulations, being able to see something virtually construct over time. So making sure we have the items we want sequenced and phased. And then there's as-built handover models. If we like to visualize the data and this Internet of Things, we need to plan out information that has already been constructed. So why is defining a BIM use or goal such a challenge? So let's go through this. Is this the right BIM? Is this the BIM you asked for? Fairly okay. There's walls and floors and ceilings and some beams. What about this? There's some glazing in there. and some sort of layering on the floor, slightly more defined structural framing. How about this? Much more detailing and finishes. So which one is the BIM that you need? These are three different levels of BIM, different amounts of detail, elements, data, etc. The problem is that we have a set of stakeholders on a project, and they all have their own opinion of what BIM should be at certain points in time. Every one of those people will have a different goal and want to produce something that is more valuable to their company. Sometimes we just need to start off with some basic questions. Who, what, where, when, why, and how are some of the questions we need to answer across the many parties involved in order to get there. Why are we doing BIM? Who is responsible for what? What scope is required for that BIM use? How much is needed? When is the scope needed? Where do we start? Start by defining the why. Why are teams creating 3D modeling in the first place? What are the most important BIM uses for this project? What's the purpose of BIM? Is it for structural estimate, MEP coordination? Is it for asset handover? And then define the what. What scope needs to be managed on the project? What's the list of elements that we will need to be estimated, coordinated, handed over? Define how much. For each BIM use, teams must define how much BIM is actually required, how much BIM matters for each customer of the model at each stage of the project. And then define the required geometry, documentation, and information requirements. We also want to define the who. Some of the most important parts are understanding when critical handovers of responsibility occur, like here for the stairs from the architect to the structural team. So knowing who is responsible and when is critical for project success. What's needed for the perfect BIM scope? Well, answers to these questions reveal what's important, when it's required, for what BIM use or purpose, who's responsible, and what handovers are expected or agreed to. So a quick recap. Let's start with the purpose. Why are we creating a model in the first place? What is the scope required? How much is actually needed? When is the scope needed? And who is responsible? We see a lot of teams responding well to a visual grid, not just the information or the accuracy or the geometry. It's a combination of all those. So we define what is required by whom and then be able to assign them. That helps us see the handover from one team to another. And very importantly, we are making it a lean workflow, streamlined, so everyone understands what the requirements are and is able to deliver. And so we don't end up like this guy, frustrated, not knowing where we stand, disagreement with the scope. He's not very happy, is he? We need to avoid certain things when it comes to drawing up a BEP. So things to avoid when drawing up a BEP with the client or the owner. Do not go on selling the BIM dream, saying how everyone is going to save so much money, how it's going to be a perfect, seamless workflow, instant ROI, etc. While it's good to sell this kind of stuff, but sometimes you have to be more specific to the project. And when you oversell it, the client or the owner tends to think that BIM is easy. Well, if you can change it once and it can update every other drawing, then surely we can have this and this and this. And they will probably go on to demand more and more, thinking everything will be easy. If you promise too early a lot of return and savings, then they tend to ask for everything, which in our industry is a crime. So be specific on what you are delivering in the BEP and what the client needs, and be mindful of the time it takes to accomplish all those BIM uses, and make it clear with the owner or the client as well. Understand that BIM is not part of the client or the owner's day job. So instead of expecting them to understand what building information modeling is and how it can benefit them, provide some clear, rich examples. Like coordination, what's its potential value? Well, coordinate building, reduce and eliminate potentially less cost growth, decrease construction time, increase productivity on site, and then more accurate as-built drawings. Or maybe 4D phase planning, showing an owner an example from a previous project and seeing the amount of effort from scoping and seeing the output is really powerful, as well as showing the benefits, for example, sequencing and safety. Quantities example, precisely quantified modeled materials, able to generate more cost estimates at a faster rate, better visual representation of the project and construction elements. We can save the estimated time by reducing quantity takeoff time. It can be added to a construction schedule, such as a 4D model. A BIM developed cost estimate can help track budgets throughout construction, easier exploration of different design options and concepts within the appointing party's budget. And then we can quickly determine costs of a specific object. And then allowing the owner or client to be able to virtually walk through their building. So virtual reality examples. So taking that hardware to the meetings for them to experience it is very powerful and very well received. But it also enables them to understand the commitments, the scope, and everything required to get to that photorealistic feel. On things to avoid, do not get too technical when drawing up the BEP. And try to align it to what the client needs. So instead of using this BIM jargon of ours, try to use pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. Clients and owners love it when you're visual. They love to see their building and how it's going to look. So use pictures to explain the scoping process instead of looking at an Excel spreadsheet or a long Word document. And this also prevents people from falling asleep on the table in the meeting as well. So BEP templates can save time and reduce risk. So instead of copying and pasting things that you might not need, you can use templates and be selective. Every project is unique, and bringing in that risk is not good for the client and for their own company. It's a liability. So the trick is to keep those templates basic and be able to develop that workflow that you are putting into those templates. Know that each BIM used can have completely different requirements. So you need to have the ability to define information, delivery milestones, and change what is required on each milestone. So you know that you don't need a high level of detail in design reviews, only a certain amount of geometry and cost estimation, and focusing on the actual coordination elements that will be needed. So delivering the correct level of geometry when needed and not forcing a high level of geometry throughout the process. Again, aligning expectations is everything. So what is important to the owner? Collaborate with the owner to create and agree on the project's requirements. So invite the owner to help with the scoping, get them engaged so they can see the processes and the effort that goes into it. Remember, lean information requirements will save time and please the owner enough so that they would want to work with you again. And being able to define project-specific information requirements is part of this. Having a library of the information that you would use across all of your projects, but also being able to just add the ones you need for a specific project that you're working on. Targeted information requirements are more achievable. So have a clear list of what is needed and what information was needed and by when. So a targeted information approach, targeted requirements, instead of asking for everything all the time. This will save time and waste on deliverables. Waste of money, waste of time. The agreements must also be printed in a contract. So being able to, in the meeting, click print and say, this is my handover documentation. This is what we agreed to. These are all the information requirements we agreed to. A nice, rapidly printed and formatted PDF document. Collaboration will help achieve BIM compliance. So bringing everyone along from day one, adding them to the team, they can help build this document. And then you can go and check and manage and verify visually before you publish a model for use. It's a waste of time having these meetings and not sharing this information with the rest of the individuals who are going to be doing the work. It's a waste of time having that 2-hour meeting and then telling the client, I'll get back to you. Instead, now you have the ability to then and there print and send everything that was agreed on in the meeting to everybody involved. By following these steps and advice, you will be well on your way to building a clearly defined and goal-driven BEP, making your project awesome. So, in conclusion, first, know why you are doing BIM. Have a plan tied to your BIM use. Know what to include. Don't forget the scope. Use templates with engaging, rich content. Have a continuous release and review cycle. And here are some resources to help your BIM team grow. Follow the link. We'll put the link in the chat for more information on Planly. And you can book your masterclass accreditation sessions with us now. And we will keep you posted for our next webinar, which will be part 2 of why most BEPs fail. Any questions? Anything from your side, Nick?
Okay, thanks. So the question is, does Planly define the different LODs per element?
Okay, so yes, you are able to specify the LOD per element. However, Planly is also able to show the level of detail using geometry. So be it in 2D or in 3D. So we have seen a better understanding in teams that can actually visualize the detail in which they need to deliver than just bluntly specifying LOD 350 or LOD 400, which most people don't fully understand.
Thanks, Ahmed. And then I got another one here. What you said, don't we still need a hard copy of a BEP to refer to on site?
Yes, you can print out a hard copy, but remember that if we have our BEP online based, we can access it from anywhere.
Okay, great, thanks. And all right, so that looks like that's all the questions for now. If anybody else has any questions, yeah, we'll definitely also be sending out this recording to share with everyone. Thank you very much, Ahmed. It was very informative, and yeah, looking forward to part 2 of why most BEPs fail.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, Ahmed. Thanks, guys.